Thanks for tuning in to learn about the changes made to the West Star ODA Procedures Manual. With Revision C just coming out, Jeff Maskowitz wanted to brief those unit members that don't have recurrent ODA in-house training due in the near future, since the update has been so significant. So this is a shortened version of the normal modules. Drivers of this update included being granted authority to accept ICA, as well as addressing some results found during the FAA Delegation Organization Inspection Program, or DOIP, that occurred in the fall of 2016. In making process updates, it was also a really good time to incorporate some improvements too. As we walk through the Procedures Manual updates, questions may arise. Please jot those down as we go through the information, and if it's not covered by the end, please send an email or call Jeff at the contact information shown. The changes that you'll see in Revision C can be broken down into 3 categories: the administrative cleanup, the process tweaks, and the big improvements. We'll step through each category so you'll have a sense of the overall revision. First is the minor administrative type of items. One item you'll notice quickly is that there's been a slight name change. Instead of West Star Aviation Incorporated, it's been shortened to West Star Aviation. This has no impact on anybody except for when you're filling out paperwork. Remember to not include the incorporated part. In a number of places throughout the manual, you'll also find that instead of Jeff being the Lead ODA Administrator, or LOA, he is now officially the ODA Lead Administrator, or OLA. Another thing you'll see is that they've added parens after FAA guidance callouts, implying that the ODA is always using the latest revision. This makes it much easier to ensure that there's a common understanding, while also lightening the load by not requiring ongoing edits. The West Star facility in Chattanooga, Tennessee was added to perform STC installations. And another simplification is that serial numbers are no longer needed on the project notification letters. The reasons for conducting self-audits was edited to make a couple of new objectives. First, reviewing unit member work to determine if technical decisions are sound and acceptable, as well as 2, assessing the procedures manual to see if the procedures are adequate. This is another area where wording in the manual was maybe lagging behind what was actually being accomplished. Coordination steps were simplified with regard to certification plan concurrence reviews. No sign-off is needed if the author is a unit member, project manager, or project administrator, because concurrence is really implied, so it's saving one step when it's time to get signatures. For other sign-offs, TIAs and RFCs are to be signed by the project administrator prior to distribution to unit members, and the Appendix G format for airplane flight manual supplements has changed, where the signee changed from the OMT lead to the ODA administrator. A clarification was added that engineering unit members are the folks who conduct and witness ground evaluations, ground tests, and flight tests using approved test plans. Again, a wording change. And then to close out a project completion steps were updated to refer to binder folders rather than project completion folders. And the project administrator no longer needs to forward a drafted 8100-1 form to the OLA. And finally, the final administrative item was an update to Appendix H to include revision control expectations for ICA content. Next, the list of changes were more along the lines of tweaking the processes that exist to make them work just a little bit better. Starts with the manner in which the procedures manual is revised. That was changed. Major changes will be designated with a letter change, like from B to C. In this case, the FAA will approve these changes before the ODA implements them. Minor changes, on the other hand, will be noted with a number, such as C1, C2, etc., and these types of changes will be approved by Jeff and provided to the FAA. This will help with being able to make small changes a little bit quicker with less coordination time needed. The authority to amend STCs was added as long as the STCs were prepared, issued, held, or West Star was involved in issuing the certificate. West Star has probably been able to do this in the past, it just wasn't written down anywhere, so now it's official. In doing this type of cleanup, the ODA can also reissue STCs for administrative errors, STC holder name changes, or to replace a lost or destroyed certificate. In a number of places in the manual, the process is referred to a secured network folder where unit members could access data. This doesn't exist for anyone though, and unless you are a direct employee of West Star, so it's been removed from the related steps. The project manager will continue to coordinate reviews via email. Something you'll notice when you receive an ODA listing next time will be the addition of special delegations for engineering unit members. Adding this feature lets us be a bit more specific in some of the areas people are allowed to function. Another edit came from recognizing that unit member authority is granted by the ODA, not the FAA, so delegation or assignments are made, again, by the ODA. This is not the same as being an individual designee, so the change is trying to address what's different. In talking about unit member authority, Appendix D charts, which define the delegatable functions in a specific technical area, were updated to include X's for the authority the ODA can grant to unit members, so this now shows the limitations of the ODA more clearly. There may be situations where you have authority as a DER, but the ODA doesn't, so they can't use that capability you might have. For example, West Star does not have structures rotor authority, so could not grant any of those function boxes in the matrices to you. In clarifying what unit members can and cannot do, you'll also notice that clarification has been added that unit members are not to perform a task outside their specific authority. It's always been frowned upon, and now it's actually just written down in the manual. Other manual changes include adding a step when a project is initiated to have the OLA review submitted applications and determine if a project is substantial or significant using FAA Order 8100.48. It also refers the reader to AC 21-101 for determining the certification basis. Another item that's been occurring, just not fully identified in the manual. The project tracking form no longer includes due dates, nor are conformity discrepancies documented on the form. Engineering unit members can now approve test plans rather than providing a recommend approval to the project administrator and having them approve it, as was done in the past. And then when testing is completed, test reports must contain the statement, "Testing was satisfactorily completed," assuming that it was. Conformity expectations were changed. Before, the manual wording said that conformity had to be complete before a TIA could be issued. Now, conformity must be complete prior to executing the TIA. This offers a little bit more flexibility. Completing a cycle of audits helps put focus on how to make them work better. In the past, the manual allowed pushing out on-site visits that are required every 18 months with all manufacturing unit members to a time when there was an available project. This has been updated to require an on-site visit every 18 months without the flexibility of waiting that was enjoyed earlier. Auditor qualifications for internal audits have also been expanded to allow another designee to conduct audits within a technical discipline. This will help in getting varied perspectives and insights during the internal audit activities to make sure an independent review is occurring. To support the audit process, new forms have been added as well. Auditors will record discrepancies found on Form WSA ODA F044, and a summary of all the findings will be captured on an inspection survey sheet, or Form WSA ODA F045. Now let's discuss the bigger improvement items that have more impact on how the ODA operates. In the function code section, you'll see that West Star has added 11180 to accept instructions for continued airworthiness, or ICA, on behalf of the AEG. Along with this additional function code, sections in the manual were added to define the role of the ICA unit member, or ICA-UM, to define qualifications and responsibilities of the ICA-UM, and to remove the limitation that said the ODA couldn't review ICA associated with security-related projects. Jeff and Don Kleintob will be filling this role for the ODA, so direct any ICA questions their way. As with other unit members, they will also be required to provide a yearly activity summary report. Along with the addition of the ICA review process, airworthiness limitations must still be approved by the FAA. However, if there are no airworthiness limitations, the ODA administrator can approve that section once the ICA has been accepted. Forms were added for ICA-UM functions too, with WSA ODA F038 serving as a documentation form for ICA acceptance, and F039 for the ICA impact assessment to determine if a change will require an ICA update. Another big change was incorporating the concept of a compliance inspection in a broader review of conducting aircraft ground evaluations, which include compliance inspections. This authority is beyond the requirements defined in Order 8100.8 and has additional training requirements as well, so will be noted as a special function. Engineering unit members will conduct an aircraft ground evaluation when compliance can't be determined from reviewing drawings or reports only. Checklists have been developed for interiors, electrical, and structural reviews and can be found in Appendix I. Form WSA ODA F046 covers interior compliance. F047 is for electrical systems. F048 is structures, and F049 is used to document discrepancies. The general process starts by using the checklist. An EUM will evaluate the integration of the modification amongst all the aircraft elements that may be in place, document discrepancies that may be found, have the design changed accordingly. The MUM will reconform the aircraft, and then the EUM will repeat the evaluation to verify no discrepancies exist, or repeat the process until it's all compliant. The conformity discrepancy process has been improved as well. In the past, the manual referred to 2193 as the guidelines for determining if a discrepancy needed to be addressed or not. However, 2193 isn't applicable in a prototype environment. Now, engineering unit members will review a discrepancy to determine if it's acceptable, meaning the issue has no bearing on compliance, or it's not, meaning there's a change to compliance, it could affect safety, or it simply needs to be redesigned. Discrepancies should be noted by the company inspector on their 8130-9 prior to presenting to the manufacturing unit member. Data revised to address a discrepancy will need an 8100-9 for approval, and the company will need to inspect the change and provide a new 8130-9. The final big changes to the manual occurred in Appendix F, which was updated to address certification plan expectations. Certification plans that you see in the future should be similar in format to what was given in Appendix F, with only minor variations due to project complexity, safety aspects, etc. Items expected for consistency that were added to the outline include a list of page effectivity, project introduction, listing certification guidance material, listing data submitted to show compliance that includes the master drawing list, compliance data, installation documentation, and FAA submittals, and AD research. Going forward, the conformity inspection plan will also be accepted by each discipline by signature too. Edits also state that when the ODA receives a response letter to the P&L, this will imply acceptance of the conformity inspection plan. Revision C of the manual was approved on March 3, 2017 by the FAA, so is effective now. Copies have been mailed to each unit member for review and to reference when working with the West Star ODA, as these changes are effective immediately. As projects are worked under this new revision, the hope is to try out the changes, and if a step or a process needs to be refined, edits can be made in the future. If something can be improved, please let Jeff know. His contact information is on the screen.